Ancient engineers created machines with a precision that challenges modern assumptions. This video uncovers 20 ancient devices so advanced they seem impossible for their time. You will discover how civilizations without electricity or computers built mechanisms that rival today's technology. How did a 2,000-year-old Greek device predict eclipses with bronze gears? What secret methods allowed Inca builders to fit stones together without a gap? Each story reveals a leap of human ingenuity that still leaves experts in awe. What does true innovation look like when resources are scarce? In 1901, sponge divers off the coast of a small Greek island stumbled upon a shipwreck from the classical era. Among the statues and artifacts, they recovered a lump of corroded bronze and wood that seemed utterly unremarkable. It was only years later, when an archaeologist noticed a gear wheel embedded in the rock-like crust, that the object's true nature began to emerge. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so complex it would take decades and advanced X-ray technology to even begin to understand its purpose. Crafted around 100 years before the Common Era, this hand-powered device was an analog computer of stunning sophistication. Its more than 30 interlocking bronze gears worked together to calculate the positions of the sun, the moon, and the known planets. It could predict lunar and solar eclipses with precision, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. The most baffling part for modern engineers was the presence of a differential gear, a complex assembly that allows two rotational speeds to be combined into one output. This technology was thought to have been invented in the 16th century, a full 1,600 years later. How could such knowledge have existed, only to vanish so completely? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a haunting question, a single surviving glimpse into a level of mechanical genius we never knew the ancient world possessed. While a single gear from the Antikythera Mechanism represents a world of lost knowledge, other ancient inventions proved so effective they were never truly forgotten. Consider the simple, life-giving task of moving water uphill. For farmers in arid regions, this was the difference between a thriving harvest and starvation. The solution came in the form of a brilliant, yet remarkably straightforward machine. Attributed to the legendary Greek thinker Archimedes in the 3rd century before the Common Era, the device we know as Archimedes Screw is a masterpiece of practical engineering. Imagine a large screw, its spiral surface enclosed within a hollow tube. When one end is placed in a water source and the entire assembly is turned, either by hand or by animal power, the rotating spiral scoops up water and lifts it steadily to the top of the tube. It is a concept so intuitive you can almost see it working in your mind. This was not just theoretical. The screw pump was deployed across ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, transforming agriculture by irrigating fields that were once beyond the reach of rivers. It also kept the great trading ships of the era afloat, efficiently draining bilge water from their hulls. The true genius of the design is its forgiving nature. It does not require a constant, powerful flow of water to function. It can handle muddy water, water with debris, and wildly varying water levels, all while demanding relatively little energy to operate. The core principle is so sound that it is still in use today in wastewater treatment plants and agricultural irrigation systems around the world. It stands in beautiful contrast to the Antikythera Mechanism. One is a complex computer that hints at a lost scientific peak, while the other is a humble, robust tool that solved an essential human problem with such elegant efficiency that it remains useful after more than 2,000 years. But the ancient world also directed its mechanical genius toward a far more destructive purpose. From the life-sustaining flow of water, we turn to the terrifying machines of siege warfare. The roar of a Roman legion on the march was often preceded by another sound, the deep thrum of a ballista's arms slamming forward. This was not a simple catapult. It was a massive, complex machine of war, capable of hurling a stone the size of a man's head or a heavy iron-tipped bolt over 500 yards with terrifying accuracy. Developed from earlier Greek designs around 400 years before the Common Era, the Roman Ballista represented a quantum leap in siege technology. Its power did not come from a flexible arm bending back, but from a revolutionary principle, torsion. Two thick bundles of rope, meticulously crafted from animal sinew, were twisted to an incredible degree of tension. When the weapon was fired, the release of this stored energy sent the projectile flying with a force and consistency that earlier machines could not match. This complex torsion system was its genius. By adjusting the twist of the sinew ropes, Roman artillerymen could precisely control the range and trajectory of each shot. On the battlefield, this meant a ballista could be used to clear enemy walls of defenders with pinpoint bolts, or systematically batter a single weak point in a stone wall with repeated stone shots until it crumbled. Historical accounts of the siege of Jerusalem describe these machines doing exactly that, their terrifying accuracy breaking down fortifications and morale. The engineering required an intimate understanding of material strength and the physics of tension, achievements that still command respect from modern engineers. It was a calculator of destruction built with wood and sinew, but the ancient world's mastery of mechanics was not limited to warfare or grand public works. It also turned inward to the intimate and universal human need to measure the passage of time. The steady drip of water in a quiet room marked a revolution in how humanity perceived its own existence. While the ballista measured force and distance, the ancient Greeks sought to measure something far more elusive, time itself. In the 3rd century before the Common Era, an engineer named Ctesibius of Alexandria transformed the simple water clock into a device of stunning mechanical precision. Earlier clepsydras or water thieves were little more than bowls with a hole, their timekeeping rendered useless as the water level dropped and the flow slowed. Ctesibius solved this fundamental flaw with a brilliant insight. His clock used a constant, regulated stream of water flowing into a cylindrical container. Inside, a float would rise with the water, and a rod attached to this float would point to the hour on a vertical scale. But the true genius was in maintaining that constant flow. He achieved this with a separate, overflow tank that kept the water pressure perfectly steady, a pioneering use of fluid dynamics. This was not all. His design incorporated gears and an early escapement mechanism to translate the float's smooth rise into the movement of indicators, perhaps even powering displays of celestial bodies. For the first time, a city could keep a consistent hour, regardless of whether the sun was shining or the stars were out. This invention did not fade away. The principles Ctesibius established flowed through history, influencing the development of advanced water clocks in China and the Islamic world, and laying the practical groundwork for the mechanical clocks that would emerge centuries later. It was a quiet machine, but its impact echoed through the ages, proving that the pursuit of precision was as much about understanding our place in the cosmos as it was about counting the hours. From a device that carved time, we now turn to one that carved history from solid stone. Deep within the workshops of ancient Egypt, a quiet, rhythmic sound marked the creation of beauty from stone. The bow drill, a tool of breathtaking simplicity, was a master's instrument. A craftsman would hold a copper or stone drill bit steady against a block of granite or diorite, while an assistant sawed a bow back and forth, its string looped around the drill shaft. This simple back-and-forth motion spun the bit at high speeds, grinding its way through even the hardest materials. To us, this might seem like a slow, laborious process, but the results speak of a speed and precision that defies expectation. Look at the drilled holes in a granite sarcophagus, their walls perfectly smooth and their diameters perfectly consistent. This was not achieved by brute force alone. The true secret was an understanding of abrasives. Egyptian artisans used a slurry of wet sand, often a harder quartz sand, between the drill bit and the stone. The spinning copper tip would press this abrasive grit into the stone's surface, effectively allowing sand to cut through granite. Each pull of the bow was a microscopic victory, a tiny particle of stone worn away. This method was so effective it allowed for the creation of impossibly delicate items, from the fine hollows in faience amulets to the intricate inlay work on royal furniture. It demonstrates a profound truth that skill and knowledge can multiply the power of the simplest tools to achieve what we assume requires complex machinery. This humble bow in the hands of a master could carve history into the face of a mountain. And indeed, the next machine we uncover did exactly that, moving entire mountains to reshape the landscape of an empire. High above the Athenian Acropolis, workers maneuvered multi-ton marble blocks into perfect alignment. The groaning of ropes and the steady rhythm of men walking within a large treadmill provided the muscle for one of antiquity's most transformative machines, the Greek crane. Before its development around the 6th century before the Common Era, constructing monumental buildings relied on immense earthen ramps, a method that was slow, cumbersome, and limited in scale. The Greek innovation was to replace the ramp with a system of mechanical advantage. At its heart was the compound pulley, an arrangement of multiple wheels that dramatically multiplies the force applied. A single worker pulling a rope could, through this system, lift a weight many times heavier than his own strength could ever manage. The genius of inventors like Archimedes was to mathematically formalize these principles, proving how a series of pulleys could create almost limitless lifting power. This was not mere theory. It was this technology that enabled the precise placement of the massive columns and lintels of the Parthenon, stones so perfectly set they have withstood earthquakes for 2,500 years. The crane did more than just build temples, it elevated the very ambition of architecture, allowing for taller, more complex, and more permanent structures. The core physics of the Greek crane, the simple yet profound idea of trading distance for force, remains the operating principle behind every modern construction crane, from the towers that shape our skylines to the wrecking balls that clear the way for them. It was a machine that quite literally raised civilization to new heights. But what if you could build not just with stone, but with the very power of the wind itself? While Greek cranes lifted stone with human strength, another civilization unlocked a far more powerful and elusive force. In the windswept plains of ancient Persia, farmers built machines that ran on the very air itself. Centuries before the familiar windmills of Europe began to turn, Persian engineers were already mastering the wind. Around the year 500 of the Common Era, they constructed the earliest known windmills, but their design was radically different from the later European models. Instead of a horizontal axis with cloth sails, the Persian windmill stood with a vertical central shaft. Bundles of reeds or woven cloth were arranged as sails around this shaft, catching the wind from any direction. This brilliant vertical design meant the mill did not need to be turned to face the changing wind, a crucial advantage in the unpredictable desert climate. The captured wind energy spun the central shaft, which then connected through a series of precisely calculated wooden, gears to turn a heavy millstone for grinding grain, or more vitally, to power a water pump. In arid regions like Sistan, where water was life itself, these windmills became the engines of survival, lifting water from deep wells to irrigate fields that would otherwise be barren. The precision here was in the subtle angles of the sails and the ratios of the wooden gears, all carved without metal tools. They had to perfectly translate the variable power of the wind into a consistent, usable force. This was not just mechanics, it was an early form of aerodynamics, a deep understanding of how to harness a renewable resource with elegant efficiency. It represents a philosophy of technology in harmony with nature, a sustainable approach that feels remarkably modern. This mastery of natural forces was not confined to the land. The same ingenuity was needed to conquer the vast and unpredictable oceans. A gilded chariot rolls through an ancient Chinese procession, its intricate wooden figure standing firm while the world turns around it. This was the south-pointing chariot, a mechanical marvel that defied the very motion it was built upon. Invented as early as the 3rd century of the Common Era, this device was not powered by magnets. It was a purely mechanical compass, a machine of such cunning design that its pointing figure would always indicate south, no matter how many twists and turns the chariot made. The secret to this seemingly magical consistency lay hidden inside in a system of differential gears. These gears, much like those in the Antikythera Mechanism, worked to calculate and compensate for the chariot's movements. As one wheel turned faster than the other in a curve, the gears would automatically adjust, ensuring the figure on top remained locked in its southern orientation. This was not just a ceremonial wonder. For military commanders navigating vast, featureless plains or dense forests, it was a revolutionary tool. Historical texts from the Song dynasty describe its use in imperial courts, where its unwavering accuracy was a source of both practical utility and profound spectacle, a symbol of imperial authority grounded in mechanical genius. The complexity of its gearing hints at a depth of mechanical knowledge in ancient China that would not be replicated in Europe for more than 1,000 years. It was a computer for direction, built from wood and wisdom. From a machine that illuminated the path through unknown lands, we now discover one that mastered the far more intimate darkness of the deep earth. From the darkness of the deep earth, a different kind of light called sailors home across the treacherous sea. The Lighthouse of Alexandria did not merely shine, it commanded the night. Standing over 100 meters tall on the island of Pharos, its massive fire was visible from an impossible 35 miles away. But the true genius of this wonder, built around 280 years before the Common Era, was not just its towering height. At its summit, a massive, polished bronze mirror curved with precise optics to capture the flickering light of a great furnace and project it as a focused beam across the waves. This was not a simple reflector, it was an early form of a parabolic mirror designed to concentrate and direct light with stunning efficiency. The engineering challenges were immense. The structure had to endure the salt spray of the sea and the rumble of earthquakes, which its architects achieved with a foundation of molten lead and glass that acted as a shock absorber. Inside, a sophisticated mechanical system likely involving counterweights and pulleys, perhaps even a type of elevator, allowed workers to haul vast quantities of wood and resin fuel to the summit day after day, century after century. For over 1,600 years, this machine of light and stone stood as a guardian of commerce and a symbol of safety, a perfect fusion of architectural ambition, optical science, and practical mechanics. It proved that ancient engineering could conquer not just stone and water, but the very darkness itself. And just as this beacon guided ships by mapping the coast with light, the next device we uncover mapped the heavens themselves with turning gears. A scholar in medieval Baghdad holds a disc of brass, its surface a web of finely etched lines and curves. This is the astrolabe, a handheld universe that could chart the stars, tell the time by day or night, and even determine one's precise location on the Earth. Though its origins trace back to Greek thinkers like Ptolemy around 150 years before the Common Era, it was Islamic astronomers who perfected this instrument into a masterpiece of precision. The device was a complex assembly of rotating discs, each one a map. One disc, called the retere, was a star chart with pointers for the brightest stars, while another, the tympan, was engraved with local coordinates like the horizon and altitude lines. By aligning these discs to match the current date and time, a user could hold up the astrolabe and sight a star through its central alidade, or sighting rule. The instrument would then reveal the answer to dozens of questions. What is the height of that star? When will the sun rise tomorrow? How many hours of daylight remain? The accuracy of these answers depended entirely on the engraver's hand. Using only simple tools, artisans had to inscribe scales of incredible fineness, their markings so precise they could measure angles to within a fraction of a degree. This was not just a tool for academics. Sailors used it for navigation across trackless deserts and seas, while religious authorities relied on it to determine the exact times for daily prayers. The astrolabe was a portable observatory, a computer of the cosmos built from brass and human intellect, proving that the most profound calculations could be held in the palm of your hand. This same drive for precision, once aimed at the heavens, would soon be directed toward a far more earthly need, the relentless demand for power to fuel the workshops of an empire. The relentless power of a river could now be channeled to feed an empire. Deep within Roman factories, the rhythmic thunder of water wheels transformed entire economies. By the 1st century before the Common Era, Roman engineers had perfected the water mill, moving beyond simple hand grinding to a system of industrial-scale automation. These were not isolated machines. At sprawling complexes like the one at Barbegal in southern France, a cascade of 16 individual water wheels used a steep hillside to their advantage. A masterfully engineered aqueduct channeled water to the top mill, and as each wheel turned, its spent water flowed down to power the next wheel in the series, and then the next. This was mechanical engineering organized with the precision of a military campaign. The heart of each mill was its gearing. Whether using a vertical wheel for direct power or a horizontal wheel requiring a complex right-angle gear, Roman craftsmen calculated precise gear ratios to transfer the water's raw force into the optimal speed for grinding grain between massive millstones. The result was staggering. The Barbegal complex alone could produce enough flour to feed the entire population of nearby Arles, estimated at over 10,000 people. This was not just convenience, it was the foundation of urban life, an early industrial revolution powered by renewable energy. The principles of gearing and water power they refined would flow directly into the mills of the medieval period and form the bedrock of our own industrial age. It was automation on a monumental scale, yet this mastery of physical power for sustenance finds a fascinating parallel in a machine designed for pure spectacle, a device that used the same principles of hydraulics and mechanics not to feed the body, but to delight the senses of the empire's elite. Within the temple's quiet halls, a bronze sphere hissed and spun, a marvel of steam and motion. This was the eolipile, a device crafted by Heron of Alexandria in the 1st century of the Common Era, and it stands as the world's first recorded steam engine. Its design was deceptively simple. A sealed cauldron of water was heated over a fire, and the resulting steam traveled through pipes into a hollow ball mounted on pivots. Two nozzles bent at precise angles jutted from opposite sides of the sphere. As the pressurized steam escaped through these jets, the reactive force sent the ball whirling at high speed. The principle was pure physics, a brilliant demonstration of jet propulsion more than 1,700 years before the Industrial Revolution. Yet for all its conceptual genius, the Eolipile was treated not as a source of power, but as a temple wonder, a philosophical toy to illustrate the properties of air and fire. Its construction, however, was no trivial matter. The sealed boiler had to withstand internal pressure without exploding, demanding exacting metalwork from artisans who had no standardized gauges. The pivots supporting the sphere had to be aligned with incredible care and polished to a fine finish, minimizing friction to allow for that mesmerizing, effortless spin. Heron's own detailed writings reveal a mind teeming with such mechanical wonders, from automatic temple doors to coin-operated holy water dispensers, painting a picture of a vibrant culture of innovation where mechanics and theater were intertwined. The haunting question is not how it was built, but why its potential was never harnessed. The ancient world possessed the blueprint for steam power, yet it remained a curiosity, a path not taken. For modern engineers, the Eolipile is both an inspiration and a lesson, a spark of genius that waited centuries for a world ready to build an empire upon it. The same principles of patient abrasion that drilled holes in Egypt were pushed to a breathtaking extreme high in the Andes. In the shadow of Machu Picchu, massive granite blocks fit together with a seamlessness that defies logic. The Incas, working without iron tools or the wheel, achieved a precision that modern masons struggle to replicate. Their toolkit was deceptively simple, consisting of harder stones, bronze chisels, and an endless supply of sand and water. The process began by hammering a chosen granite surface with a heavy hand stone, repeatedly pounding to create a fracture line. They would then drill a series of holes along this line and insert wooden wedges. When these wedges were soaked with water, they would expand, cleanly splitting the stone along the intended plane. But this was only the beginning. The true artistry lay in the finishing. Using smaller hammerstones and abrasive sand, craftsmen would painstakingly pound and grind the surfaces, slowly wearing the granite down to the exact required shape. This was not a quick process. It was a monumental exercise in patience, where skill and an intimate knowledge of the stone's grain replaced complex machinery. The result was a jigsaw puzzle of interlocking blocks, each one uniquely shaped to fit its neighbors perfectly. The joints are so tight that to this day you cannot slide a piece of paper, let alone a knife blade, between them. This was not merely for aesthetic appeal. This precision was the secret to their legendary earthquake resistance. When the ground shakes, a rigid wall of mortar would crack and crumble. But an Inca wall with its tightly locked stones dances. The blocks shift and settle against each other during a tremor, only to lock back into perfect alignment once the shaking stops. This is a masterclass in material science, an understanding that flexibility can be a greater strength than rigid perfection. How could such a simple method produce such enduring results? It proves that technology is not always about the complexity of the tools, but the depth of the knowledge in the hands that wield them. From a civilization that mastered the Earth by shaping it, we now explore a device created to measure the planet itself. An engineer stands at the mouth of a tunnel, peering through a narrow tube at a single point of light in the darkness ahead. This was the Dioptra, the ancient world's answer to the modern theodolite, and the key to some of its most ambitious construction projects. Developed by Greek innovators like Heron of Alexandria, this instrument was the epitome of geometric precision. At its core, the Dioptra was a simple sighting tube mounted on a flat, graduated base. By aligning the crosshairs within the tube on a distant target, a surveyor could measure both horizontal and vertical angles with remarkable accuracy. This allowed for the precise plotting of land, the setting of gradients for aqueducts that had to flow steadily for miles, and the alignment of arrow-straight Roman roads. Its most famous application was the Eupalinos Tunnel on the island of Samos, a 1,000-meter-long passage dug straight through a mountain in the 6th century before the Common Era. Two teams began digging from opposite sides, guided only by Dioptra sightings from the peaks above. The margin for error was virtually zero. A miscalculation of a single degree would have meant the tunnels would miss each other completely deep within the mountain. When the teams finally broke through, the meeting point was off by less than a hand's breadth over that entire distance. The true genius of the Dioptra was this marriage of simplicity and profound results. It required no complex gearing or moving parts, just a keen eye and an understanding of geometry. It proves that the foundation of all great engineering is not just the power to move Earth, but the precision to measure it first. This meticulous attention to measurement and alignment, so vital for public works, found a far more delicate and artistic expression in the next machine, a device that decorated the palaces of emperors with the beauty of polished stone. The rhythmic pull of a bowstring now gave rise to objects of pure beauty. Deep within the workshops of ancient Mesopotamia, artisans harnessed the simple motion of the bow drill and transformed it into something far more versatile, the bow-driven lathe. As early as 1,500 years before the Common Era, Babylonian craftsmen were using this ingenious device to shape glass and hard stone into exquisite vessels and intricate beads. The principle was a masterstroke of adaptation. A craftsman would use a bow much like the Egyptians used for drilling, but its string was wrapped around the workpiece itself, a rough cylinder of glass or stone. As the bow was sawed back and forth, it spun the material rapidly against a sharp, stationary cutting tool held steady by the artisan's hand. This was the birth of precision turning. With this machine, they could achieve a level of symmetry and fine detail that was simply impossible by hand alone. The true test of this technology was mosaic glass, a luxurious material made from rods of different colored glass fused together and then carefully shaped. Turning such a complex blank on the lathe required an artist's touch and an engineer's mind. The speed of rotation and the pressure of the cutting tool had to be perfectly controlled. Too much force or speed, and the delicate glass would shatter or the intricate colored pattern would be ruined. The resulting vessels, with their perfectly concentric patterns and flawless curves, were among the most prized luxury goods of the ancient world, traded across empires. This machine was not about survival or warfare. It was about elevating craft into art, proving that mechanical innovation has always been driven by our desire for beauty and status. The core principle of rotating a workpiece against a fixed tool is the very soul of every modern lathe, milling machine, and precision grinder in use today. It was a quiet revolution in a workshop, one that would shape the future of manufacturing itself. But while this machine brought artistry down to a human scale, the next device we uncover was built on an almost unimaginable scale, a machine designed to conquer the very skies. A multi-story wooden fortress moved across the battlefield under its own power, a rolling mountain of timber and terror. The Roman siege tower was more than just a ladder. It was a mobile command post and a bridge designed to deliver soldiers directly onto the highest enemy battlements. At the siege of Masada, the Romans constructed an enormous ramp of earth and stone to push a colossal tower against the mountain fortress walls, a project of staggering ambition. These towers were feats of precision engineering, built from thousands of wooden components joined with such exactness that the entire structure could withstand the strain of movement and the impact of enemy projectiles. Their height, often exceeding 30 meters, required a deep understanding of weight distribution and bracing to prevent a catastrophic collapse under their own immense weight. Wheels, some taller than a man, allowed them to be maneuvered over rough ground, while complex systems of internal pulleys and counterweights stabilized the structure during its slow, ominous advance. Every surface was a calculated defense, often covered in freshly soaked animal hides to protect against the one weapon that could destroy it all: fire. The creaking of its timbers and the rumble of its wheels were a psychological weapon, a visible countdown to the final assault. This was not brute force, it was strategic innovation built with the precision of a master carpenter, a machine that could conquer a city by simply walking up to its door. From this terrifying application of engineering on the battlefield, we find the same principles of leverage and power applied to a far more peaceful, yet equally vital, task on the farm. Deep beneath the arid plains of Persia, a hidden river flowed in perfect silence. This was the Qanat, a subterranean marvel of hydrological engineering that sustained entire cities in the desert for thousands of years. Developed as early as 1,000 years before the Common Era, this system required no pumps, no engines, only the unwavering force of gravity and the profound patience of its creators. To build a Qanat, workers first identified a water source at the foothills of a mountain where groundwater collected. From there, they began the monumental task of digging a gently sloping tunnel, just wide enough for a single person, back toward their settlement many kilometers away. The precision required was breathtaking. The tunnel's gradient had to be perfectly calculated, a drop of only 1 or 2 meters for every kilometer of length. Too steep, and the water would flow too fast, eroding the tunnel walls. Too shallow, and the water would stagnate and fail to move at all. Along the entire length of this underground canal, teams dug a series of vertical shafts from the surface down to the tunnel, spaced every 20 to 50 meters. These shafts served a dual purpose. They provided air for the diggers working below, and for centuries after, allowed for maintenance and cleaning of the tunnel. The entire project was an act of faith in geometry and surveying, conducted with nothing more than simple sighting poles and water levels. A single miscalculation in the initial survey meant months of backbreaking labor would be wasted, digging a tunnel that would never carry a drop of water. But when executed correctly, the Qanat delivered a steady, reliable flow of pure, cool water from the aquifer directly to the fields and fountains of arid towns, creating lush agricultural oases in the heart of the desert. This was sustainable technology in its purest form, preventing evaporation loss and tapping groundwater without depleting the source. The system was so effective it spread along the Silk Road, from China to North Africa, and its principles of gravity-fed water management still inform modern engineering. It stands as a testament to a civilization that looked not to conquer its environment, but to work in harmony with it, unlocking the secrets of the earth to bring life to the sands. This mastery of fundamental principles to structure society finds a parallel in another ancient innovation, one designed not to channel water, but to codify human law. A single, intricate image could be repeated across 1,000 clay documents with flawless consistency. This was the power of the Mesopotamian cylinder seal, a machine of stunning simplicity that standardized the ancient world's first bureaucracy. Crafted as early as 3,500 years before the Common Era, these small stone cylinders were each a masterpiece of miniature art. Using only simple copper tools, master engravers carved complex scenes into their hard surfaces, depicting everything from mythological heroes to the official duties of a temple administrator. The seal was then pierced through its center and mounted on a simple wooden axle, transforming it from a static artwork into a dynamic printing device. A scribe would roll this seal over a wet clay tablet, and the raised carvings would leave behind a deep, crisp impression in the soft surface. The precision required was extraordinary. The engraver had to carve their design in mirror image and ensure every line was perfectly proportioned, knowing that any flaw would be reproduced every time the seal was used. This was not merely for decoration. These impressions acted as official signatures, authenticating business contracts, sealing storage jars to prevent tampering, and marking clay tags on shipments of goods. In a world before paper or digital records, the cylinder seal was the ultimate tool for trust and verification, a mechanical guarantor of identity and agreement. It functioned on the same principle as a modern printing press, using a revolving cylinder to transfer information. This tiny, handheld machine brought order to empire, proving that the repetition of a precise image could be as powerful as any law. From a device that brought order to clay, we now turn to a machine that brought unity to landscapes, a structure designed to conquer the flow of water itself. A stone bridge carries the weight of history upon its precisely fitted arches. While the Qanat channeled water unseen beneath the desert, Roman engineers mastered the art of spanning great rivers with structures of breathtaking permanence. The Alcantara Bridge in Spain stands as a perfect example, a monument of granite that has carried traffic for nearly 2,000 years. Its resilience is no accident. It is the direct result of mathematical precision in its most foundational element, the arch. The Romans did not simply stack stones, they engineered a system of perfect compression. The process began with the construction of a massive wooden frame called centering, which was a temporary scaffold built to the exact curve of the intended arch. Each wedge-shaped stone or voussoir was then meticulously cut and placed against this frame. The true genius was revealed only when the centering was removed. The keystone, the central voussoir at the arch's peak, locked all the others into place, transferring the immense weight of the bridge down through the curve of the arch and into the sturdy abutments on either bank. This brilliant distribution of force meant that the bridge was strongest under load, its own weight and that of any traffic simply pressing the stones more tightly together. This structural mastery was paired with a revolutionary material, pozzolana concrete. Unlike modern concrete, this Roman recipe, a mix of lime, water, and volcanic ash from Pozzuoli, possessed a remarkable secret. It could cure and harden even underwater, forming a crystalline structure that actually grew stronger with time and exposure to the elements. This was the magic ingredient in the piers that stood firm against relentless river currents. The precision of the arch's geometry and the durability of this concrete created infrastructures that bound the empire together. Legions could march and vital trade goods could flow across rivers that were once impassable barriers. The design was so accurate, so perfectly balanced, that many Roman arch bridges not only stand today but still serve their original purpose. They are a daily reminder that the most enduring technology is often that which works in harmony with the immutable laws of physics. This same drive to create lasting structures of stone and mortar, however, found a far more whimsical expression in the royal courts of the ancient world, where engineers turned their talents from supporting armies to supporting the weight of pure delight. A bronze urn stood silent watch in the Han Dynasty court, its 8 dragon heads gazing outward in a perfect circle. Within its ornate body lay a secret that could sense the trembling of the earth from hundreds of kilometers away. This was the seismoscope, invented by the brilliant scholar Zhang Heng in the year 132 of the Common Era, and it was the first earthquake detector in human history. While its exterior was a work of art, the true genius was hidden inside. At its heart hung a heavy pendulum, suspended delicately and ready to swing at the slightest tremor. When seismic waves, those invisible pulses of energy from a distant quake, reached the device, the pendulum would sway, but this was no simple swing. The internal mechanism, a sophisticated arrangement of levers and linkages likely based on inertia, amplified this tiny motion. It was designed to trigger just one specific action. As the pendulum swung toward one direction, it would trip a latch, causing a single bronze ball to drop from the mouth of the corresponding dragon into the waiting mouth of a bronze frog below. The clang of that ball was an official announcement, a precise directional report stating that an earthquake had struck in that exact direction from the capital. Historical records from the era describe its stunning accuracy. On one occasion, the device triggered with a ball falling from the dragon facing west, though no tremor was felt locally. Skeptics dismissed it as a false alarm, until days later a messenger arrived from a province far to the west, reporting a major earthquake had struck at the very moment the dragon had released its ball. How could a machine of bronze and levers sense what the human body could not? It detected the primary waves, the fast-moving but weak vibrations that arrive first from a distant quake, while the more destructive waves that shake the ground come later. This means the seismoscope was not just a detector, it was an early warning system. Its existence speaks to a scientific curiosity that looked beyond the obvious, seeking to understand the invisible forces that shape our world. It stands as a final, powerful testament to a shared truth woven through all these ancient machines. From the Antikythera mechanism mapping the heavens to this urn listening to the earth, they were not built from limitless resources or complex electronics. They were born from a profound understanding of fundamental principles, a patient mastery of material, and an unwavering human drive to solve the great mysteries surrounding them. True innovation, it seems, has always been less about the tools you hold and more about the wisdom with which you use them. These 20 machines are not just a collection of isolated wonders. They form a single, powerful story of human ingenuity. Across continents and centuries, from Greece to China, from Persia to Rome, a common thread emerges. It is the story of brilliant minds achieving stunning precision without the tools we assume are essential. Ancient engineers lacked electricity, computers, and standardized metal parts. Their world was one of bronze, wood, and stone, yet they solved problems of such complexity that their solutions still command our respect. How was this possible? The answer lies not in magic, but in method. They were masters of observation, patient students of the natural world. They understood the principles of leverage, hydraulics, and geometry through relentless trial and error. They learned that a precisely calculated gear ratio could predict an eclipse, and that a perfectly shaped arch could withstand millennia. This knowledge was not developed in a vacuum. It flowed along the trade routes of the ancient world. The encounter between Greek geometry and Persian practical needs, for example, sparked innovations that spread across empires. This cross-pollination of ideas was a powerful engine of progress, yet for all their achievements, so much of this knowledge was fragile. It was often held in the minds of a few master craftsmen, passed down through oral traditions that could be broken by a single war or a forgotten teacher. The loss of the Antikythera mechanism's underlying principles is a haunting example of how an entire library of engineering can vanish into the sands of time. This makes the machines that survive all the more precious. They are messages from the past, reminding us that true innovation is not always about having the most advanced tools. It is about the depth of understanding, the patience to refine, and the creativity to see new possibilities in the materials at hand. In an age of complex supply chains and disposable technology, these ancient marvels offer a profound lesson. They show us that sustainable, durable, and brilliant solutions can be born from simplicity and wisdom. The past, it turns out, holds blueprints not just for machines, but for a smarter way to build our future. These 20 stories form a single, powerful testament to human ingenuity. Across continents and centuries, from Greece to China, from Persia to Rome, a common thread emerges. It is the story of brilliant minds achieving stunning precision without the tools we assume are essential. Ancient engineers lacked electricity, computers, and standardized metal parts. Their world was one of bronze, wood, and stone, yet they solved problems of such complexity that their solutions still command our respect. How was this possible? The answer lies not in magic but in method. They were masters of observation, patient students of the natural world. They understood the principles of leverage, hydraulics, and geometry through relentless trial and error. They learned that a precisely calculated gear ratio could predict an eclipse, and that a perfectly shaped arch could withstand millennia. This knowledge was not developed in a vacuum. It flowed along the trade routes of the ancient world. The encounter between Greek geometry and Persian practical needs, for example, sparked innovations that spread across empires. This cross-pollination of ideas was a powerful engine of progress. Yet for all their achievements, so much of this knowledge was fragile. It was often held in the minds of a few master craftsmen, passed down through oral traditions that could be broken by a single war or a forgotten teacher. The loss of the Antikythera Mechanism's underlying principles is a haunting example of how an entire library of engineering can vanish into the sands of time. This makes the machines that survive all the more precious. They are messages from the past, reminding us that true innovation is not always about having the most advanced tools. It is about the depth of understanding, the patience to refine, and the creativity to see new possibilities in the materials at hand. In an age of complex supply chains and disposable technology, these ancient marvels offer a profound lesson. They show us that sustainable, durable, and brilliant solutions can be born from simplicity and wisdom. The past, it turns out, holds blueprints not just for machines, but for a smarter way to build our future. What other secrets are waiting to be rediscovered? If you found this journey through the echoes of ancient genius as fascinating as we did, we would love to hear which machine amazed you most in the comments. For more deep dives into history's greatest wonders, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for joining us on this adventure where the past continues to light the way forward.